My name's Rudge Bowen. I'm the Operations Director for Nowatt. Nowatt is the market leader in energy monitoring. The best analogy is probably to say that we put a heart monitor on a business's energy consumption. So we look at where energy is being used now, as opposed to the historical way of measuring energy, which is looking at a bill. You know, a bill tells you what you used. A meter tells you what's flowed through it. What we actually do is look and see exactly where that energy is being used at a device level, at a real-time resolution, so we can see things like a thermostat failing on a unit. We can compare it, a floor of a building, a particular circuit, the effect of an infrastructure upgrade, etc., etc. What typically happens is we install for a client who's concerned about energy costs. Usually we drive out maybe a third of that energy saving, of the energy costs, particularly around electricity, in the first year, which is a pretty massive saving. And in this time of increasing energy costs, emerging legislation, government taxation on energy usage, it's very much becoming to vogue. I suppose you could look at it a bit like saying it's the difference between a telephone bill and an itemized telephone bill. Once you know where it's being used, you can do something about it. It's behavioral change, it's evidence-based decision making, and it's a fairly inexpensive solution. We don't even interrupt the electricity supply to be able to install our collection devices. Okay, usually when we look at a client, we'll install our kit around a particular issue. So somebody will say, our energy costs are out of control, or there's a particular project we want to do. So we go in and we start measuring, which is really the baseline of any project. You discover what they're doing now. And by collecting that data in a real-time way, we're building up a data warehouse of the energy patterns, the energy usage, and so forth. And then any change, you can measure the delta. So you're now recording the return on investment that you've made around any particular thing. So some of our customers will come to us and say, we're thinking of installing low energy lighting, for example. Other customers will say, our energy bill is just too high, we need to control it. So the kind of things we discover are, people using personal heaters under desks, people not turning things off, lights being left on, or plant equipment not performing properly. So last week we did an installation for a very modern academy-type school where the energy consumption is particularly high. And so what we've done in there is we've installed at the highest level, so we're looking at a macro level in terms of lights, aircon, heat exchanger, chillers, and so forth. And then we'll do a second level down to get right down into the circuitry of looking at the individual areas when we can see where that energy is flowing. What typically happens with a client is they'll start off with the biggest spending areas first and bring in behavioral change, bring in plant improvement that will deliver them the biggest saving. And then they'll move on to the next area and the next and work through the business. And as I said, it's not unusual for people to drive out 30–40% saving on their current infrastructure, which is a damn good place to start when you think about it in terms of energy saving strategy moving forward.
Yeah.
A lot of people will talk about investing in wind or biomass or whatever. Our argument is get it all under control, the stuff you're doing now, and then decide where it's best, generate some savings, invest that in sort of a longer term type strategy, as well as collecting the information that will allow you to do the reporting into the government or whatever input you require into another project. Well, if you think you're going to probably be driving a sort of 20–40% saving in that first year, the costs are typically around 5% of your electricity bill in a year. So usually people get it get a payback within a quarter. Obviously, we've got to collect data over a period, but once they start implementing these changes, it's a pretty compelling return on investment. Obviously, then it reduces as things move forward, as you get things more under control, but this is a real-time monitoring service, so basically you're managing those changes and making sure people then don't forget about it and go back to their old bad habits. It's pretty, 5% of your electricity bill is a pretty good thumbsuck. It will depend on the individual site, but that's pretty standard.